white people have a lot of assumptions about black people.
We want to put him on the cover in one of those scarves, I guess you would call them, tied around his head.
A do-rag?
Do-rag, that's it. Do-rag and a tank top with the muscles showing.
Somebody call the fire department.
And because society is structured the way it is, those opinions carry a lot of weight.
Thank you.
In the movie American Fiction, a black writer looks around at the books white publishers like to put out.
Look at what they expect us to write.
Would you read an excerpt?
Yo, Sharonda, where you be going in a hurry like that? If and you gots to know, I was going to the pharmacy.
His books haven't been selling, so he hatches a plan.
If they want stereotypes, I'll give them one. Deadbeat dads, rappers, crack. You said you wanted black stuff. That's black, right?
I hates this man. I hates my mama, and I hates myself.
He writes it, and no surprise,
We love it.
What?
It is very,
Black?
yes, that's it. I'm happy you said it and not me.
the movie touches on a really old slam against the publishing industry. If you haven't seen my video about Zora Neale Hurston, make sure you see it, because in 1950, Zora Neale Hurston wrote about just this very thing. She wrote an article in this magazine, What White Publishers Won't Print. She said, "There's no demand for incisive and full-dress stories about Negroes." And she said that's because the white stereotype was, everybody know that Negroes don't think.
Look at my face. Look at my midnight black complexion. No, that's not right, huh?
But what did you want to say? Think about it, Van Gogh.
Look at my face. Look at my cold black skin, and then look at your own.
Look at my black eyes, and look at your own.
Look at my big black lips, and look at your own. How's your daddy, whether you like it or not?
Shut up!
Zora Neale Hurston wrote that 75 years ago, and you know what? Not a lot has changed.
Right. Yeah. Wait a minute. Why are these books here?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that this author, Ellison, is black.
These books have nothing to do with African American studies. They're just literature. The blackest thing about this one is the ink.
America's racial structure was literally black and white for 350 years, and you know who was calling the shots. Zora Neale Hurston was talking about literature, but you can find the same problems and assumptions when it comes to music.
What I was really doing, and my father was really doing, was giving an avenue for those people to express themselves and tell their side of the story. And I think that's what a folklorist is.
This is Alan Lomax, a giant in the field of folklore. He made historic musical recordings, most important, the music of black men in the rural South.
We're recording here tonight. We're having a party, so come on in.
This music became super popular in the time Zora Neale Hurston was writing about. White Americans turned it into folk music. White kids in England turned it into rock and roll. But there's something of a backlash now against this former hero. Alan Lomax lived in an era with different ideas about cultural sensitivity, and he spoke with a level of self-confidence that's kind of cringeworthy today. Here he's talking about what white slave owners liked about their slaves.
They brought a different approach to religion. They brought a whole different way of looking at the relations between people. They had a different sexual system. And, of course, the thing that appealed to everybody the most was their mastery of rhythm and of music and of a sense of life.
Along with his problematic ideas came a whole set of questionable methods. Lomax and his father had tried recording black men's songs throughout the 1930s, but they never felt safe doing it, so they kept showing up at gin joints with the cops. You can imagine how well that worked out.
The black communities were just too difficult to work in with any efficiency, and so my father had the great idea that probably all the sinful people were in jail, That's where we found them, and that's where we found this incredible body of music.
Recording in prisons worked out great for Lomax because if someone didn't want to sing, he could always just ask the guards to change the man's mind.
That's fine, Lead Belly. You're a fine songster.
Whenever Lomax went out to record people in the wild,
he didn't ask, share the songs that you enjoy singing. He asked for them to find songs that fit into his idea of old-time folk songs. You have no opportunity to hear what middle-class African Americans are into or what upper-class African Americans are into or urban African Americans.
Lomax never recorded music at a black college. It would take him 17 years before he ever recorded at a black church. But he wasn't ashamed of his methods. He realized that he was saving songs that no one had ever recorded.
I think the most important thing that anybody can do is to try to restore the balance. I call this cultural equity.
That's a very complicated issue. It gets back to this issue of black music and white music and the expectations and perceptions of what is African American, who is African American. And that gets embedded into stereotypes, degrading stereotypes. African Americans are criminals, they're illiterate, they're not serious, they're not smart. And so that authenticity is rooted in having that kind of vision of what an African American can or cannot be.
We talk a lot about what Alan Lomax gave our culture, but think about what his fixations took away. White culture lived off of those prison songs for 50 years. It's tempting to think about how our culture could have been different if he just broadened out beyond prisons. Here's one example. Clarence Fountain was the lead singer of the Blind Boys of Alabama. When he was a child in the 1930s, he liked to listen to the Golden Gate Quartet.
You may talk about the men of Gideon. You may brag about the men of Saul. There's none like the good old Joshua at the Battle of Jericho.
It's the same thing as rapping, what the rappers do now. You're singing to the beat, but you're rapping in tune. There wasn't no difference. Ain't no difference in rapping back then than it is now.
Hey, children, stop still and listen to me. God walked down to the briny sea. He declared that the evil was sent from man, and then he decided to destroy the land.
In the 1950s, black barbershop quartet music turned into doo-wop. Imagine where we might be if Alan Lomax had recorded rap in 1931. The collections of recordings he assembled is nothing short of monumental. But the truth is, right at the time that the civil rights movement was trying to bring whites and blacks together in a common cause, Alan Lomax drew a hard line between white and black culture, a line that cultural gatekeepers are still drawing today.
Editors, they want a black book.
They have a black book. I'm black, and it's my book.
You know what I mean.
When the going gets tough, gotta